So, if the Circle were the Beatles, now you're going to have to forgive me because, golly, it's going to be going on 2 years now. I watched Peter Jackson's documentary of the Beatles, Get Back. Hopefully you guys have seen that. If not, and if you have the time and if you have the means, I highly recommend it if you are a music fan at all. Really revealed so much about that group that I really admired. I mean, obviously their music is before my time, but they provided the soundtrack for my childhood. But us as the Circle. So check this out. You have several people that are involved in the Beatles. There was the producer guy whose name escapes me that chain smoked cigarettes. You got Paul McCartney, of course. You got John Lennon, of course. You got George Harrison, Ringo Starr. Dude, you got Yoko Ono hanging out. And Linda McCarthy. Are you kidding me? All in that video. So, in the documentary, they're making this album, and the Beatles were going through a pretty heavy transition. They had stopped performing live, spoiler alert, and were becoming studio artists. And this is the cusp of, not really the cusp of rock and roll. I think a lot of people have the debate about the Beatles inventing rock and roll, and I would disagree with that. I believe the Beatles invented heavy metal. Reason for it had to do with mostly John Lennon and the way that he wanted to implore that crunch and distortion and bring in the harmonic and subharmonics. Revolution is one of my favorite songs, and the story behind how he got the sound out of the guitar was when they were plugged into I believe it's called the table. I don't know. The name escapes me right now. I'm not thinking clearly, but it was his feed was actually plugged into a dying channel and then overdriven and then looped back like straight out of that channel. So that's where that and so. And then you have, in the song, there's McCartney and George Harrison just trying to keep up, kind of going with the best they do. Like, how do you have that sound with doobie shoobie, shoobie doobie? And then later on, in a different song, Helter Skelter, there's McCartney trying to keep up with Lennon again, just screaming his damn lungs out, like, Helter Skelter. And then there was George Harrison chilling with George Clapton and trying to do something else, while McCartney and Lennon flowed together. And then there was Ringo, just really keeping the anchor, keeping the rhythm. If you watch that documentary, it's very, very, very interesting. The other thing is, I learned about it. A lot of people, Beatles fans or semi-Beatles fans, talk about Yoko Ono destroying the Beatles. And when you watch that documentary, you see something different. They're all playing around. Yoko's there. Now I would say Lennon had a different perspective. He felt that Yoko was part of the band, and that my understanding is, and he figured it was his band, so she could be part of the band and contribute to it. Linda McCartney had more talent in her pinky finger than most human beings have in their whole body times 2. But golly, you know what's crazy about it? They were all kids. They were all in their 20s. That's a factor. So apply that to our little circle group. Everybody contributed something. And in the case of Get Back, it contributed to one of the coolest performances, arguably one of the coolest performances, that rooftop performance of the Beatles. And that's what the documentary all leads to. Something really special. I'm talking lightning in a bottle. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But man, those guys had an ego on them. I think, my opinion, ego-wise, this may be an unpopular opinion, and this is unrelated to the topic necessarily. I think it was George Harrison's ego that was ripping the Beatles apart. Let me explain. Dave Grohl, drummer for Nirvana, right? Obviously talented, goes on to the Foo Fighters. Dude's amazing. Amazing. But listen to him in interviews when he was talking about when he was in Nirvana. They let Cobain write, do his thing. They just sat back and let the music be pure. George Harrison wanted to innovate. He thought he had something. Other members of the Beatles, such as Eric Clapton, and forgive me for not knowing the piano player. Is it Charlie Parker? It's Charlie something. But golly, he was amazing too. He's in the documentary. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, circle people. Let's see some videos. Yeah. I want to hear Yellow Submarine. If I don't hear a Yellow Submarine video, I will sing Yellow Submarine. And don't nobody want that. Don't nobody want that. All right, y'all. Take care. Have a great day. Keep banging away. Do what you do. Time to put your nose to the grindstone, though.